Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to another episode of Kaiju's Corner, the show where I get to talk about anything that pops up in my head alongside my good buddy Deadpoolzilla. So, say hello to the audience, Deadpoolzilla.
Hello to the audience.
And so, what are we going to be talking about today for this episode?
We're going to talk about movies and how they've been, spiraling.
Spiraling out of control, it seems. Do you recall a certain point in time where both Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, they commented on the over-reliance on big budget, multi-million dollar tentpole summer blockbuster films, and how the studio system they predicted that the studio system was going to go through like a bit of a crash if they continued to rely on this system.
I faintly remember such a conversation.
Yeah, I want to say maybe, I know I was in college when this happened, so maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, they made a prediction where they predicted that if a year were to occur where every studio's big budget production were to fail, then the entire system would fall apart. And so a lot of people were like, that's not going to happen. You can't possibly have every movie come out, or the majority of blockbuster movies come out and fail all at the same time. But I want to say this year seems to be getting awfully close to that breaking point. So I've been looking up a lot of the numbers on Box Office Mojo to the majority of the biggest movies that came out this year, and I think outside of The Jungle Book and Captain America: Civil War, most of these movies have been having rather disappointing box office performances. Now, I don't want to go into the actual quality of said movies, but rather just going by numbers alone, as really that's like, sure, you can make a good movie and you can say that's a success, but when it comes to the studios and when it comes to making more movies afterwards, the numbers pretty much, it's the numbers and the sales that the gross, like the domestic and worldwide grosses, are what matter to these companies in order to make new movies in the future. So let's see, we've had the biggest one by far was probably big in terms of disappointing was probably the new Ghostbusters film, which its production budget was $144 million, but of course its marketing was everywhere, and it only made back $194 million worldwide. So it hasn't even made back its money yet in America alone. And when you can't make your money back in America, that's a really bad sign, because America, and especially China, are like the biggest the biggest countries that Hollywood relies on in terms of like box office performance. And we know Ghostbusters ain't going to be touching China anytime soon.
Yeah. It is interesting to see these kind of films I wouldn't say tank, because a lot of these films that we've seen, I personally enjoy some of them, but I was the one I was surprised that it underperformed. The one I was really surprised by how it underperformed was Star Trek Beyond, because I saw nothing but good reviews, and I thought the numbers were really well for that film.
Yeah, looking at the numbers, its production was $185 million. It has not made that back in America, and it's barely made its money back worldwide. So in order to consider yourself a success, a technical success, you would need to have at least make twice your budget back. But considering all the marketing, that is a lot of millions of dollars that's spent on marketing your movie, you would have to make 3 times your money back in order to be a true success. And Star Trek Beyond hasn't made twice its budget back. Let's see, Ninja Turtles was 135, really did not make its money back in America alone, and made it's 135 million and only made 100 million over its budget.
Yeah.
So I was surprised, because wasn't the first movie successful enough to warrant this sequel in the first place?
Yeah, it was, but then people realized, it's trying to be too hard a Bay film. And it kind of sucks, too, because I haven't seen the movie yet, but I feel like from all my friends who have seen the movie, they keep saying, yeah, this is the closest we're going to get to a good Turtles movie. So, in recent years, because we've had good Turtle movies in the past.
And let's see, we had a Batman v Superman, which had a big giant opening, but the only reason why it had a big giant opening was because it made the very strange decision of releasing its movie all around the world at the same time. So, from what I understand, this seemed like it wasn't really a very good decision because as soon as word of mouth spreads, everyone in the fucking world will decide not to see it at the same time. Whereas in some cases, it's best to, release your movies, like, spread apart the release dates. I mean, that's why Japan gets their movies, like, a month later or a month or two after it comes out in America, to where it's like a lot of that hype gets built up. And so when a movie comes out in America, then people will get excited for when it eventually comes to their country. So it's like you keep the hype train rolling. Or like you can spread like the information very thinly. So like if a movie underperforms in America, people in Japan will know about it, and so they'll go into the movie blind. But if everyone sees the movie and everyone knows that the movie sucks, then they'll just refuse to stop seeing it altogether all at the same time and just spread a shitload of bad word of mouth.
Yeah.
But, I think I remember reading a story where someone predicted that, I really wish I knew who said this, but someone predicted that Batman v Superman, in order to be a true success, and given all the money that's been poured into the marketing, this movie would need to gross at least $1 billion just to be considered a true success. And even though
that was I know what you're trying to say. It was one of the heads of Warner Brothers who was having a panic attack over this.
Mm-hmm. And so the movie's production budget was $250 million, and it made $872 million. So no, unfortunately, it did not make back its money. But you know what did reached $1 billion? Captain America: Civil War. Same production budget of $250 million, but made $1,152 million. So
you know why? Because that movie wasn't cut to fucking ribbons.
Yeah. A movie,
and it actually had more competent directors.
Right. And I was really surprised. For me personally, my biggest surprise in terms of movies that bombed was Steven Spielberg's The BFG. In fact, I was really... So this is like a Steven Spielberg movie made by Disney based on one of the most popular books popular children's books. A book that is very close to my childhood that I read in elementary school. I was very...
Oh, sorry. And you also have to take into account that this is the final... the woman who wrote E.T. and a majority of Spielberg's film, this was her final film before she passed.
Yeah. There's a lot of talent and a lot of resources writing on this film, and its production budget was $140 million, and it made worldwide $141 million. So it made $1 million more. That is just sad.
Yeah.
So then we have Suicide Squad, which is currently in theaters. It's making decent amounts of money. It has 175 million.
Despite the reviews.
Right. Although a lot of my friends who have watched it are saying that it's you know what? It's got a lot of problems, but at least the characters are cool.
I've seen it twice, and not because of my choosing. The first time I was just in another town with my cousin, and we went to go see the midnight showing in 3D. The second time was more my dad was like, oh, let's go see it. And I was like, all right, it's not a movie I'd want to go see twice, but I'll say this. Suicide Squad is flawed but fun. I'll give it that. It was a lot more fun than Batman v Superman. And I'm not trying to say, oh, it was just fun like Marvel. I would want a dark, serious superhero movie, but making
just do it
absolutely
right.
Yeah, just do it right.
Instead of just having any of sort of that oh, you know that name kind of stupidity.
Yeah.
So the movie was made on a production budget of $175 million. It's made almost $500 million. And so I think it's gonna on its verge of being a somewhat of a big success. At least more successful than Superman in comparison to their budgets and grosses and marketing. Finally, we have X-Men Apocalypse, which had a production budget of $178 million. It did not make that money back in America, but it managed to gross $539 million. So roughly, it's cost about the same as Suicide Squad, and it's making roughly the same amount of money as Suicide Squad.
Yeah. It is interesting. Also, another thing that has blown my mind of how well it did was Jungle Book.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this movie
That
was.
was what I honestly thought that was going to suck because, the trend so far with the live-action Disney films have been I didn't watch Cinderella, but from what I've heard, it ranges from okay, but that's from my friends.
And
I've heard differently.
I've only seen Maleficent, and that was shit.
Oh, Maleficent sucked.
So so Jungle Book, it had the same budget as Suicide Squad and X-Men, and that one reached almost $1 billion worldwide.
Yeah, like I was saying, the Jungle Book movie just really surprised me of how well it did. It made almost $1 billion, and it's after Maleficent and the mixed reviews I've heard from Cinderella. It surprised me that they managed to bounce from this, and then we have in the same year they have Pete's Dragon, which I hear is doing not so well.
Right. So it's like fluctuating all over the place. Kind of similar to Pixar, where like The Good Dinosaur was considered a disappointment, but then the other two movies on before and after, Finding Dory and Inside Out, they were also major successes. So it seems like with Disney, they're kind of like constantly going through ups and downs. However, in the case...
Yeah, so...
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Disney, it won't matter to Disney because, they have Rogue One and Manoa this year.
Right.
Still.
And it seems like, in terms of animated features, they seem to be doing very well for the most part. I think Sausage Party, the R-rated animated film that recently came out, that was considered a success, considering how low budget that film was. I'm pretty sure there are some other animated movies that also came out around this time. I think Secret Life of Pets was also considered a success.
Yeah.
So I get.
I'm hoping Kubo does well. I know that came out last week, but I'm hoping Kubo does really well.
I forgot. Are stop motion animated films usually considered like lower budgeted than traditionally animated or even 3D animated films?
I believe they're lower budgeted.
Yeah,
they're just slightly lower budgeted.
Okay, yeah, they have to be lower budget. They must have a lower budget than 3D animated films. Okay, but in terms of studios that have been having the most difficult time, I'm pretty sure they would have to go with. They would have to be Warner Brothers and especially Sony Pictures. Like, with Sony Pictures, they were constantly trying to build a cinematic universe out of something. They failed with the Amazing Spider-Man series, and they were spending a shit ton of money advertising the fuck out of Ghostbusters, and they were already planning on spin-off movies, an animated TV show, like all kinds of merchandise for this thing. And even in Japan, I would see like a lot of stuff here before the movie's eventual release. And it turned out to be a spectacular bomb. So that's two endeavors that Sony poured a lot of money to and just completely dropped the ball on them. So I can't even see like Sony trying to bounce back from this. I mean, they're trying to put up a brave face by saying, "Oh, we're still doing great. Ghostbusters is a success. We're gonna make an animated movie." But from what I heard from rumors, it's like behind the scenes, everyone's like losing their shit over this.
What were they expecting? And I'm not trying to discredit the movie.
They were expecting a popular brand from the 80s to still be relevant to this day.
And you can still do that. I feel like, but everything was working against them. Mostly the fan base and also the stuff Paul Feige said about said fan base.
Right, yeah. I mean, this movie was... the people... It's very... Not only is it unprofessional to attack your haters or attack your detractors, but it just makes you look very foolish. Meanwhile, you got a lot more professional individuals who try to keep a more like professional composure, more calm, determined composure, and like whatever criticism they get, they simply do not respond, and thus they won't get any flack for it. I mean, like,
yeah, and plus, it's. I think what everything was working against it: fan base, lack of professionalism. Mm-hmm. That movie, like the moment they said they're remaking Ghostbusters, and it's not because I don't think it was because of the all-female cast. I think it was just because if you came out and said we're remaking Ghostbusters, period,
Right.
then you have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you there. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like with Ghostbusters being a failure, hopefully maybe that can be a detractor for all future big remakes to come, possibly. Nah, they'll probably still rely on big popular brands. Let's see. With Fox, they seem to be doing okay for the most part. I mean, there was what was that one bomb? Fantastic, that was a huge bomb. But on the other hand, they still have Planet of the Apes, the Planet of the Apes franchise, as well as X-Men. They're still trying to ride high on that X-Men money. Although considering how X-Men Apocalypse didn't make that much money back, who's to say what will happen with Fox? Now with Warner Bros.
Well, you have to understand that however, you could say that, but then they had Deadpool in the same
That
year.
is true.
And
Deadpool was costed less money. You see, that's like kind of like the smart route, to spend less money and actually make a return on your investment instead of making a bloated budget.
But yeah, the thing is with Deadpool was that it had the right team behind it. It had the director and actors and everything going for it. Like that was a passion project, and it showed.
Yeah.
So yeah. So even with low budget, it clearly showed that, you can still make something grand. And I think even Fox was like, oh my God.
And I think that you're right about that. Like, they need to have the right mentality when it comes to making films. It's all about like wanting to make a movie because you want to make the movie itself, not making it one purely for the sake of making money. Of course, everybody makes money, wants to make money from movies, but it's like that shouldn't be like the main focus. And I feel like that was certainly the focus with like Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And you have to understand that, they still have the Wolverine movie next year.
Yeah, that's true. And so there was recently a story that I found before this recording where it involved an alleged former Warner Brothers employee who went by the name of, let's see, what was it? Gracie Law? Yeah, I think it was Gracie Law because she had the same name as the character from Big Trouble in Little China. And she made an open letter to Warner Brothers basically saying, what the fuck are you doing, Warner Brothers? And she was constantly berating the company and I think the CEO for constantly like promoting the directors despite their past failures, and having like everyone from like all the lesser employees, the lower ranked employees, to take the fall for the directors and the creative people's failures. And so like they're essentially getting punished for the directors and the head CEOs and the producers for making like the bad calls. And she started listing off a series of like failures from Warner Brothers, like Pan and Adam Sandler's Blended, Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, Edge of Tomorrow, which was a good movie, but they completely botched it in terms of marketing. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was also a failure. And so it's like, if anyone's in dire trouble, it kind of seems like Warner Brothers might be like the one to take the biggest fall. It could possibly be like this generation's RKO Productions. Now, if anyone...
I wouldn't go that...
Like if...
I wouldn't go that...
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that for anyone who doesn't know, RKO used to be like one of like the big five studios before it eventually fell into like the obscurity.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same reasons Warner Brothers is. I don't think Warner Brothers hasn't it hasn't gotten to that level yet. But it's clear that something needs to be done about the management of these films. And that something's got to be done quick, or everyone get off the sinking boat. And that will also hurt. Legendary is still kind of in cahoots with Warner Brothers,
right?
Even though they're under a Chinese company now. What was the name of the company they're under now?
Oh, I completely forgot. I didn't even know Legendary was bought out by a Chinese company. Although, speaking of Legendary, ironically, it seems like of all the movies that Warner Brothers has put out, Godzilla seems to be one of the few like big successes that isn't like the Lego movie.
Yeah, but I think yeah. Warner Warner Brothers needs to get their act together. And and like you said, Sony, I think if anyone's going to go first, I think it might be Sony.
Right. And Sony, luckily for Sony, Sony's a big company that spreads over multiple forms of media, and so it's not like Sony's going to go away permanently, but Sony's film division could most likely like just hit a brick wall.
Yeah. Their gaming, however, has been great, at least in my opinion, and I'm still shocked Sony got a hold of Hideo Kojima. Can you believe that? Sony got him.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure it's like as soon as like Sony left Konami and started his own company.
You mean Kojima? You said.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sony.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Kojima. He left Konami, and when he started his own company, I'm sure like Sony was like, please help us out here. Like we need to get him right now. We need to secure him under our belts. Yeah. But isn't like Sony's like game division, isn't that like more Japanese part of the company, and Sony Pictures is like the American front?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, there's so much to Sony more than that. But it's clear that something's got to be done about the movies, and it's clear that's where they're hurting the most. Even more, I would say, than Warner Brothers. But then you look at how they've been treating, the DC films and how they're desperate. It's like a fat kid trying to run a mile in a second.
Yeah. They're trying to they're trying to put all their chips in one basket, and they're just making all the wrong bets. And for whatever reason, they still seem to dead set on sticking with the same production, same producers, same directors, same creative force, who have been who have been criticized under scrutiny for the last 3 years since Man of Steel came out.
Yeah,
basically, like,
and that's the textbook definition. It's quintessentially the textbook description of insanity right here.
Pretty much, yeah. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Like basically, they're betting it all on red, and actually, it's like they're all betting it on like one specific number for a specific color. Because with red, at least half the time you'd be able to get it right. And in terms of the superheroes, it hasn't, like, sure, I know there are people who like Batman v Superman. There are people who like the Suicide Squad. But in terms of, like great successes, so far they haven't hit that, like, sweet, like, that Civil War, Dark Knight sweet spot where, like, the majority of people like it and it makes, like, a shit ton of money.
Yeah. That is a good point. It is it's clear that a lot of these studios, even Disney, is like, man, what are we doing wrong here? But however, I feel like with Disney especially, I think they understand when something flops. They're like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, that might be true. At least with Disney, I mean, so far they seem to allow
and that's the same thing. And I'm sorry, I was just about to say that it's just like with Sony, where they have stuff outside films where they'll be like, yeah, we're still good.
And I think like with from what I understand, like Warner Brothers seems to be very like restrictive in terms of like what exactly they want out of their films. Where it's like, from what I understand, like David Ayer, he had like a different idea for the movie, but then Warner Brothers came in and said, no, it has to be like more jokey. You have to make it more humorous. You need to make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy because we're panicked because Batman v Superman is not doing well and we're panicking real bad here. Meanwhile, I feel like with a few exceptions here and there, like it seemed like Disney and Marvel Studios, they seem to allow like more creative freedom with their movies. Although, like given what happened with Edgar Wright with Ant-Man, it seems like that's not like 100% the case, but it's a lot better than Warner Brothers' situation.
Well, with Edgar Wright, even though they parted ways, it wasn't like completely fuck you, I'm out. It was more like, according to Edgar Wright, they didn't, and Marvel on both sides, they were like, yeah, we're cool.
Right, right. Yeah, I guess it was. I think they meant they reported it as a mutual agreement or something like that. Oh no, no, I think
It was a mutual grievance.
yeah.
He wanted to make it he wanted to make Ant-Man a standalone film. Marvel wanted it to be part of the big universe, and they couldn't come to an agreement, so they left. But it wasn't like, screw you, I'm out, and they didn't pay attention to my vision. It was more like, no, it's just, it's just like a bad relationship that needs to mutually part ways.
Yeah, yeah, and the whole mutual agreement thing. I think I was thinking of the announcement from Legendary and Warner Brothers when Gareth Edwards left Godzilla 2, and
Yeah.
but I guess in terms of to go back to what I originally proposed, do you think with this year's past failures, or this summer blockbuster's failures and disappointments, do you think this may be a sign that the Hollywood system as we know it could be in trouble?
I really don't know. It's happened before where, Hollywood looks like it's been on the brink, then something comes out and it's spectacular. I mean, look back 2008 when the best film of that year was Dark Knight because everything else was just terrible.
Let's see.
Well, okay, not everything was terrible. That was the same year we had Iron Man, so
Yeah, yeah. And we had, what else was 2008?
Cloverfield.
And Hellboy 2.
Yeah, Hellboy 2, but even that one underperformed.
That was very true. Otherwise, we'd have like Hellboy 3
Also,
and 4 right now.
Also, I looked up the numbers for Kubo. Oh boy, you ready?
Oh boy. Okay. What's the budget and what's the gross so far?
The budget for the film was $60 million.
Okay, that's relatively a lower budget. Yeah, yeah.
All right, brace yourself, because here's how much it made back.
Hold on your butts,
So
folks.
far of its initial $13.6 million.
Ouch. Damn.
Ow. Oh.
And this is like you definitely can't blame it on marketing, because I saw this movie like everywhere on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, it had multiple trailers, and then it only had TV spots for a few weeks before its release.
Uh-huh.
And again, Leica films have been, they've some of them have kind of, I wouldn't say underperformed, but they still keep making them. I mean, it looks bad now, but you were saying?
I was going to say, go ahead. I'm going to check out how Ben-Hur did.
Oh, I can't wait for those. I was just going to, like, a tendency to, this may look bad, but they'll keep going. Like, every few years they'll come back and, yeah.
Let's see. So, for Ben-Hur 2016, the production budget was $100 million. And after its first weekend, it's only made worldwide a little over 20 million. Yeah.
Oof.
Oh, wow. So yes, so Suicide Squad and Sausage Party are still doing well. However, like Ben-Hur, Kubo, War Dogs are all like kind of struggling. So yeah. As for me, what I think will happen is that maybe this would be some kind of wake up call. I mean, I unfortunately I feel like there are definitely going to be more individuals who are going to be losing their jobs. And, that's always the sad truth whenever things don't work out. Funny enough, this reminds me of a quote that Kevin Smith made when he was talking about the producer of the movie Superman Lives, the movie that he almost got the chance to write for. And he mentioned how this producer, he started out as being like a hairstylist for Barbra Streisand, and then he eventually became a bit full-on big budget film producer. And he said, well, I guess in Hollywood you only fail up. And so yeah, I guess like the individuals who end up making some strange, like Zack Snyder, he was a simple like film director who started with a few films here and there. Then he made it big with Dawn of the Dead and eventually got 300, and then he worked with superhero movies like Watchmen. Now he's in control of Batman, Superman, the rest of the Justice League. So yeah, you fail upwards. Meanwhile, everyone below you just takes the fall for your mistakes. And I think that's what's going to happen.
It's also kind of weird because you look at Gareth Edwards, who did Monsters, and then he jumped right into Godzilla, and now he's doing a Star Wars film. Yeah, Except, however, in my opinion, I don't think it's hit a bad mark yet.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, we were just talking about Godzilla, the Godzilla anime, and how those, like, both Shin Gojira and the Godzilla anime, they both have, really talented people with a lot of experience behind them. Meanwhile, Hollywood seems to be going for the more like obscure indie directors, probably as a way of saving money, because I'm pretty sure it's a lot more expensive to hire someone like Spielberg or J.J. Abrams than to hire a newbie like Gareth Edwards or Josh Trank. And so I feel like maybe this was Hollywood's attempt at saving money while also like spending less money on big name directors, instead putting all their money on like making big budgeted special effects and marketing, of course. So but I think this system isn't really going to be working for too long, and eventually I feel like maybe Hollywood could be getting a big wake-up call in the near future and would have to start reorganizing their things. I feel like they're still going to rely on the big-budget summer blockbuster special effects extravaganzas, but if they don't start changing their act, I could predict, I don't know. Like, you see, the thing is, I'm not an analyst, I'm just, like, shooting in the dark here, but maybe within, like, the next 5 years, we could see, like, maybe possibly, like, the loss of at least one big company.
Yeah. In some way, I can and both can't see that happening. But yeah, I guess we're not professional analysts here.
Right.
So
I feel like some big company has to take the fall in order for everyone to start noticing. The rest of Hollywood to start noticing.
Yeah. We're not Nostradamus here. We're Nostradamuses.
That is very true. We're only just a couple of geeks just shooting the shit on the internet. So I guess that's all we can say on the matter of this year's disappointing box office performances. So, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap things up?
Not really. I think we got everything covered.
Yeah, I think so too. But you know what? If any movie has come out of this unscathed, I'm very glad it was Shin Gojira, which surprisingly made it back into the #1 spot here in Japan.
Actually, that was confirmed. Not it's still at #2.
Oh, okay, but it's still doing very well performance-wise, so that's still good. So, anyways, where can people find you, Deadpoolzilla?
On my channel and Geekvolution. Sometimes.
Thank you. See, that's what you call marketing, okay? Unlike Warner Brothers with Edge of Tomorrow, we know how to pimp our shit out and spread, let people know about our existence. So anyways, like I said in the last video, you can also check out the rest of my videos here on the Kaiju Noir channel, and check out any of my recent podcasts, podcasts, reviews, books, comic books, movies, and so on and so forth. And you can check out our last episode that Deadpoolzilla and I did on the recently announced Godzilla anime, and our thoughts and predictions on the announcement. So anyways, thank you very much for everybody for listening to another episode of Kaiju's Corner. I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
And I'm Deadpoolzilla.
And until next time, everybody, take care. You need to say goodbye, damn it.
Play me off, Jerry.
There we go. Okay.